Welcome to Spirit Grooves. My name is Michael Erlewine, and today we're going to be looking at one of the oldest and easiest ways to become more aware. It's called Shamata. Shamata meditation was one of the two main forms of meditation that were originally identified by Shakyamuni Buddha some 2,500 years ago. The other form was Vipassana, or insight meditation. Although the two are sometimes taught together, it's most common to learn Shamata first and Vipassana second. Shamata, then, is the fundamental basis for most other forms of meditation. An analogy that I often use is that of trying to thread a needle with shaking hands. It's very difficult. Shamata meditation removes the shakiness from the hands so that the more advanced forms of meditation like Vipassana, insight meditation, can be learned. It's the place to start. It's the basis on which further meditation practices are based. There are not only hundreds of types of meditation, there are scores of approaches to teaching what's going to be presented here, which is basic, traditional Shamata meditation. I make no claims to be definitive, and I encourage you to read other accounts. Much of what I will be presenting here has to do with misunderstandings that I had while I was learning, suggestions that would have saved me years of time, and I mean years of time. I wish I could have read some of these suggestions myself as I was coming up. I have learned to read enough Tibetan to know that they have dozens of words for meditation. Here in the U.S. we have just the one word, meditation, and it has to cover hundreds of techniques that claim to be meditation. Everything from lava lamps and lighting incense, burning candles, to all manner of guided meditations, various relaxation therapies, and so on. How does one sort through all of these for something authentic, something that's been around for more than 50 years? There's nothing wrong with relaxing and just cooling out, and you can call it meditation if you want to. However, it's also helpful to distinguish traditional, the tried and true meditation techniques that have been around for thousands of years. Distinguish them from those that are perhaps just a current fad. The particular meditation presented here has been around for at least 2,500 years, and it was taught by the Buddha himself. My particular lineage originated in India, came into Tibet from Marpa, the translator, and others, was taught to the great Tibetan yogi Milarepa, who then transmitted it to Gampopa, and he transmitted it to the first Karmapa, Dusam Khenpa, and on down the line of Karmapas to the present day, and the 17th Karmapa. I learned this technique personally from the very venerable Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche in 1974, and have studied and practiced it ever since. My wife Margaret and I have run the Heart Center KTC, a Tibetan Buddhist meditation center, and have taught meditation since the mid-1980s. What's my point? Shamata is an authentic form of meditation that's been passed from mouth to ear for centuries. I have been given permission to teach it by the Venerable Khenpo Kata Rinpoche. This form of meditation is taught both by the Zen and Tibetan Buddhists, not to mention many Hindu groups as well as in Japan, Korea, Nepal, and all over Asia. It's called Shamata in Sanskrit, which means abiding in the calm, abiding in calm, and it involves simply learning to allow the mind to rest naturally. And as mentioned, this form of meditation is the fundamental basis for more advanced forms of meditation. Everyone, of course, knows of the Dalai Lama. He is the spiritual head of one of the four main schools of Tibetan Buddhism, the Gelugpa lineage. The current Dalai Lama is the 14th rebirth of this same teacher. I belong to another lineage of Tibetan Buddhism known as the Karma Kagyu. The head of this lineage is the Gyalwang Karmapa, and he is the 17th rebirth for that teacher. In other words, the line of Karmapas predates the line of Dalai Lamas by 3 generations. Thus, the Karmapas are the oldest, the first ever reborn Tibetan masters. I say this only to point out the authenticity in the history of this particular lineage. I was fortunate to meet both the 16th Karmapa in 1974, and later I traveled to Tibet with my family to meet the current 17th Karmapa in 1997. I've also been with the 17th Karmapa and served as a photographer during his first 2 visits to America in 2008 and 2011. While Shamata meditation is taught by all 4 of the Tibetan lineages, this particular method that I will share with you comes from the line of the Karmapas and the line of the Indian Mahasiddhas before that, and originally from the Buddha himself. If you ask most Buddhist practitioners what are they doing as regards meditation, they will say they are doing their practice. The accent here should be on the word practice, because in the beginning we are practicing meditation and not meditating. True meditation comes later. It took me years to understand this. I don't know what I was thinking, but I guess I thought I was meditating, when in fact I had never really learned how. Actually, what I was doing was practicing meditation, but I hadn't understood that that was what I was doing, just practicing. Basic meditation requires that we develop some mental muscle memory. You know, the habit of the technique itself, something up to now we have never had. This takes time, and to use the word again, practice. This fact is often not understood by those setting out to meditate. We just don't instantly meditate. The technique of meditation that we are learning here is like the scaffolding used to build a house. When the house is done, we take down the scaffolding. In this analogy, meditation is the house or goal, and the techniques of meditation, learning mindfulness as a habit, is the scaffolding. Here's an analogy. If we want to learn to play a musical instrument, such as a guitar, we first have to learn to tune the guitar, even string the guitar. We have to learn the various ways to play chords, and of course there are the musical scales to learn. This is not the same as playing music. We must practice scales and tuning, etc., before we can play music. So that's what I mean by practice. When we have practiced enough, then we can play music. Meditation is like that, but with one big difference. When you learn to play the guitar, you know beforehand what the end result, what music sounds like. You can go and listen to music. With meditation, this is not true. Meditation requires the same kind of practice, building a muscle memory, although we do it mentally, as when we learn to play the guitar. But with meditation, we have no idea and no experience of what the end result we are working toward is like. We can't just play the music of awareness whenever we want. In fact, we may have little to no experience with enlightenment, with awareness, and so forth personally. We are going only on what we have read and heard, and this is a big difference, something really to think about. In fact, the expectations and assumptions we make about what the result of meditating is supposed to be often become the greatest obstacle to true meditation. We think we know what it is we're supposed to be doing, what it's supposed to be like, when by definition we don't. That's what we're here to learn. We compare our actual experience in practicing meditation to the idea we have built up about it, and usually come up short. that disappointment itself impinges on our practice. I find it important for beginning meditators to admit to themselves that they have no idea what enlightenment, realization, or even much greater awareness is like, because they don't have it. They just don't know. That's why we are learning to meditate. But unlike music, we can't just put on a CD and hear the music of awareness. We have to trust, as in the movie Field of Dreams. If we practice, awareness will come, and it will, but not if our expectations overpower it and cause us to throw in the towel. To summarize, meditation practice is just that. It's a practice, and it's not the goal of practice, which is meditation and the awareness that that brings. Our meditation practice is like the training wheels on a kid's bike. Once we learn to actually meditate, we take the training wheels off and we just meditate. But until that time, keep in mind that practicing takes effort, and effort is not part of natural meditation, but only a way to build the muscle memory, mental habit we need in order to meditate. So don't confuse the efforts to meditate, your efforts, with the meditation itself. We are practicing meditation. Sounds like this. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the meditation technique itself, called Shamata. Shamata technique is actually very simple. It involves concentrating on an object and allowing the mind to rest on the object for as long as we wish. The object can be anything: a twig, a pebble or stone, even a spot on the wall, or nothing at all. There even is such a thing as formless meditation, but we won't start with that. The most common object used for training in meditation is the breath. We sit and concentrate on the breath coming in and out of our lungs. But any object can do. There are no rules that I've ever seen about which objects must be used or any that should not be used. It is sometimes said that using a small statue or image of the Buddha or of Christ or Muhammad that will bring extra credit. But in a pinch, anything will do. Anyway, it's not about the object, it's about the process of meditation. We don't examine the object with our mind, but just allow the mind to rest on the object. It's a point of reference. This focal support, the pebble or the breath, is just a reminder to remain undistracted. It's a method of placing the mind. We are not meditating upon the focal support itself. We're not meditating on the pebble or the breath. And the process is simple. Let the mind rest on the object, the twig, the pebble, whatever, and just hold that focus. They say to hold that focus like you would hold a raw egg in your hands, not so loose that it will fall and break, but not so hard that you will crush it. Try it, and you will soon see that it's not that easy. But that's what we're here to learn. When the mind wanders, and it will for most of us, and we wake up from a thought or a daydream and realize that we've stopped resting on the object, we should just be aware of that fact and very, very gently bring the mind back to rest on the object, the pebble or the breath, whatever, and just continue. There's no use spending even 1 nanosecond on beating ourselves up or feeling bad that our mind has wandered. This would be like adding insult to injury. Once you realize that your mind has wandered, just leave it go at that and continue. In fact, Shamata meditation is an endless series of beginnings, always bringing the mind back to the present moment. You can't tell or force the mind to stay on an object. It doesn't work like that. If you make an effort or try to forcibly rest the mind, it will just go every which way but loose. It may even seem that we have to use reverse psychology to get the mind to do what we want. This is how we learned how the mind works, so we should take note. This is learning to meditate. Eventually, the mind will naturally rest wherever you want it to, and the key word here is rest. Shamata meditation is all about allowing the mind to come to rest naturally, and it's a two-way street. As hard as it is to get the mind to rest on an object in the beginning, once you learn how, it's just as hard to dislodge it. As for what posture to use in meditation, there's always the traditional 7-point posture that has been used for centuries. I'll present it in a moment. If you can comfortably do that, by all means use that. But if you can't, just about any posture will do. Sitting on a chair, lying down, whatever you wish. The point is to sit comfortably. Sit so that your posture is not distracting you. It's that simple. I should point out that if you can sit straight and all of that, there are real benefits from doing so. So make an effort to learn the 7-point posture and relax in that. Here are the 7 main points. First point, sit in the Vajra, the full lotus position, if you can. It's difficult to do. If you can't, just sit loosely cross-legged in what is called the Sattva position. Point number 2, touch the tip of the thumb of each hand on the first or second joint of the ring finger, and then close the hands into a relaxed fist. Place the 2 fists palm downward on the knees and try to keep the arms straight. An alternative position is to place your hands in the position of meditative equipoise, with left hand palm upward on your lap. Then place your right hand palm upward on top of your left hand, 4 finger widths below the navel, until the tips of the 2 thumbs almost touch. Use whichever of these 2 positions is most natural to you. I tend to use the second one because my arms are kind of too long to put them just on the edge of my knees. Position number 3, or point number 3. Without breathing, tighten the sphincter muscles. Draw your abdomen up, and then very gently relax those muscles back to their normal position. Point 4. Straighten your spine so that it resembles an arrow, including your lower back, so that it does not lean forward, backward, or to either side. Position number 5, or point number 5. Focus your eyes on the tip of your nose and extend your gaze 4 finger widths from the tip of your nose upward. Let the gaze rest there with eyes open, and try not to let your eyes wander. Do not close the eyes. It's a real impediment if you try to learn to meditate with your eyes closed. It's much better to learn to meditate with your eyes open. Point 6. Rest your tongue flat and somewhat tightly against your upper palate, neither on the teeth nor on the roof of your mouth, but gently somewhere where they come together in the middle. Close your lips, but leave a slight space between your teeth. Point 7, and the last point. Bend your neck just a little, pressing down on your Adam's apple with your chin so that it resembles an iron hook. At least that's what the Tibetans write. Anyway, pull your chin in slightly so there is a very light pressure on your voice box. With practicing meditation, it's best to use many short sessions rather than one really long one each day. Back in the 60s and the early 70s, it was really popular to ask students, even beginners, to sit for a very long time. And Zen Buddhists often recommend the benefits of extended periods of sitting practice, like all day long. I certainly sat sesshin for all day long back in that time. It was very difficult. However, that's not the way the Tibetans teach it. Of course, if you love to sit for hours at a time and meditate, that's wonderful. But often beginners have a lot of trouble doing this. I know I did. Next point is, don't stain your practice. In this tradition, even the great Mahasiddhas, the great meditators, recommend many short sessions rather than pushing yourself to longer ones. And the reason's simple. We must be very careful not to stain our meditation process by forcing ourselves to do more than we feel like. Of course, if we are just being lazy, we should push back a little bit and persevere in our intention to meditate, at least make some effort. However, if instead of developing a habit of joyful or at least neutral sitting practice, we continue to force ourselves to do it against our own will, we will gradually develop antagonism against the practice itself. I hope you have enjoyed this segment of Spirit Grooves. If you'd like to read further on awareness, please see my free ebooks on astrologyland.com. Look for the book link in the middle of the page. My name is Michael Erlewine, and I curate what is probably the largest library of astrology in the world, the Heart Center Library. I hope you have enjoyed this segment of Spirit Grooves, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.